This broadcast of the NLRL Sunday League is brought to you by Malwa Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website at www.malwa-transport.ca. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTN for tonight's coverage of Season 5, Round 2 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by Malwa Transport and live exclusively on TRTN. As always, I'm Regan Clark. You join us here in a relatively cloudy Monterey County, California, a broad distance from the normal sunny and bright conditions we've come to be expected here in California, right here at the home of Monterey's finest auto racing venue, the Mazda WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Founded in 1957 and comprised in the modern day of 11 turns and 2.2 miles of FIA Grade 2, it's the home of the Monterey Grand Prix in the IndyCar Series, as well as IMSA Sports Car Championships' Course de Monterey. The first ever race was the 1957 Course de Monterey that was won by Pete Lovely, driving a Ferrari 500 Testarossa. Today it's the home, though, of Season 5, Round 2. Of course, we visited this circuit not too long ago in the trailing end of Season 4. Now we return for the first endurance race of the championship. Taking a look into the session regulations for today, bringing them up now. As you can see, we're into the first of the endurance format. 10 minutes of free practice and 20 minutes of qualifying as per usual, but now we start to see the changes come in as we get in toward the race today. 90 minutes of racing, so an additional 30 over the standard format to bring us to an hour and a half, and then an open fuel time, open strategy, mandatory pit stop exemption. Only a single pit stop, but what you choose to do with that is totally up to you. Taking a look then back into the session before we get on to the scope of championship standings, we are on board at the moment with Alan Alexander on his way up towards the scope of turn 5 in sector 1. Getting a look then into those championship standings, starting things off with the topic of the overall standings, trailing out of what was a maiden victory this season and his 4th career victory in the Sunday League for Cas van Velzen. He leads the championship ahead of Christian Lebay, 48 points to 35. Zolt Beefgartner makes 3rd as Knight Walker has been disqualified from the championship for reasons we'll explain later on. So that pushes Beefgartner up to 3rd and vice versa for the rest of our top 10 here. David Tanguay on debut to the series, 4th place and leading in the rookies, with Alan Alexander on your screens at the moment, 5th place with 21 points. Jason Denotta in 6th place with Nissan, ahead of Ben Meredith in 7th. Looking into 8th place, Brooklyn Donkin with Euro Titans number 17 BMW, 8th place ahead of John O'Driscoll. 9th, Kyle Jenkins rounds out the top 10 in the overall standings. Getting a look then in towards the rookie standings, team standings, and then the success ballasts from later on in the regulations discussion. Here in the rookies, we see Tanguay leading ahead of Dodonna 2nd, with Meredith 3rd, O'Driscoll 4th, Rod 5th, Gioette Boris in 6th, Dylan Herbert 7th, Nuke Waste in 8th, Luke Wilson in 9th, and Michael Johnson in 10th there. Bentley and Nissan at the forefront of the Rookies Championship for its 2nd ever season in circulation after its introduction in Season 4. Looking into the Teams Championship, and Euro Titans off with a raging charge there after round 1, out of the gates immediately to the lead with 84 points to their name. They are up and ahead of the Season 3 Teams Champions, Malwa Racing in 2nd place with 59 points. 3rd place for TSRC Esports. They find themselves on the back of the podium and ahead of LMP Esports in 4th. 5-star off to a bit of a slow start then, with only 5th place, 12 points to their name out of round 1 in Suzuka. MSR round out the scoring charts then with a single point in 6th place. Looking into every winner and the success ballasts after the last round, we can now see an update there to our charts after 44 races of the NLRL Sunday League. Cas van Velzen claims the first of Season 5 for his 4th overall victory. Looking into where that fine success ballast is concerned, you'll see here are 3 drivers to receive success ballast after the first round. You'll see that P3 has been changed up there to Beefgartner. Now, we will have to take this with a grain of salt. This will either be 2 kilos or 1, so that's not an exact metric there, just as a discretionary. Since Zolt Beefgartner has technically been promoted to 3rd after Knight Walker was disqualified, it is up in the air as to whether or not he'll be receiving 1 or 2 kilos for this round. So just take that with a grain of salt. We'll have a more precise metric by the end of this round. But otherwise, you can see definitively over the front row, 4 kilos added onto Christian Lebay and 5 kilos added onto Cas van Velzen. That's not considering then the discussion of balance of performance here, with about 4.5 minutes left to go in free practice. We're still on board with Alan Alexander, but taking a look around the field, we'll start to try and find on board here with last round's race winner. If he's out on track at the moment, we do hope he is, and there he is, Cas van Velzen. Behind him there, we saw Kieran Rod get sideways out through turn 3. So on board with last round's race winner as we get into the discussions of balance of performance. 4 minutes left to go in free practice, and then we'll get on to the topic of the qualifying predictions. But looking here, this is according to pitskill.io, which has been the provider for the balance of performance files for the Sunday League for the last 4 seasons, now into its 5th. Aston Martin losing 40 kilos. We saw that off in the background. That was Ian Skeen with Mercedes. More on them in a moment's time then. Lexus with 34 kilos shed away from the RCF. Bentley loses 31 kilos to make a holy trinity towards the back of the field there. Bentley, Lexus and Aston Martin all losing significant wads of weight today. Mercedes following in their trails with only 9 kilos off of the 2020 AMG. Ford find themselves rather precariously into the negatives then. 9 kilos off of the 7th gen Mustang. They're ahead of McLaren with 8 kilos off. Porsche and Ferrari with 3 kilos off. BMW with a single kilo off. So for Cas van Velzen, he will find himself running the quick maths on that there with about 4 kilos over his car. That puts him neck and neck then with Nissan's current default setup, 4 kilos over the GTR R35. Lamborghini make heaviest in class with 10 kilos added to the Huracan. So 3 minutes left to go in the session. Taking a look at the timing chart so far, Stefan Nicolai fastest in the number 5 Ford Mustang. He'll be a prominent feature then in the qualifying predictions a little later on. He's 300ths up the road from Alan Alexander in second. Cas van Velzen, who we were watching on with there a moment ago, third fastest now after his last lap, 125 thousandths of a second off the fastest time. David Tanguay leading in the rookies then. His rookie season kicked off with a bang, quite literally so in Suzuka. Thinking back to that incident at turn 11 involving him, Cas van Velzen and Christian Lepay, that huge impact on the run down through the hairpin left at turn 11. He's just been dethroned as the fastest rookie in free practice. Chioet Boris now fastest but 4th overall. Ian Skeen rounds out that top 6 then, 3rd row. Now pushed down to the 4th as John O'Driscoll goes 6th fastest in the number 420 Ferrari. That pushes Skeen down to 7th, Lepay 8th, Meredith 9th, and Angel rounds out the top 10. Of the remaining times having been set so far, Bajor 11th, Greaves in 12th, Rod in 13th, Sturrock in 14th, and Beefgartner just about, by looks of it there, on his way to another flying lap. So he'll be possibly up past 15th. So far, we do see the 15th time roll in Luke Wilson in the 212 Euro Titans McLaren. Set to make an appearance yesterday, sadly couldn't make it to last night's race in a very bizarre, very controversial 6 hours of Monza. That was a bit of a nightmare, dealing with the G-Portal servers suddenly shutting down across the board halfway through the race last night. That will be available up on YouTube, hopefully within the next 24 to 48 hours, depending on how willing they are to get that out as soon as possible. We get in towards the end of free practice. We see there continued troubles for the 61 of Kieran Rod. Back into the pit lane he goes. And it was a bit of a bizarre one so far. He's been struggling for stability in the Mustang. Now, I imagine it is a bit of a far cry for the Mustangs at this time to find themselves so spry, so fleet of foot with that 9 kilo reduction. So for Nicolai, now leading by 2 tenths. Now as O'Driscoll goes 2nd fastest. Brings that gap down then to 91 thousandths of a second, just a shy over 900ths. With 35 seconds left to go in free practice, the majority of the cars then out for their last flying laps. We see Alan Alexander on his way down towards the line. Up in front of him, just recently there, the new fastest time, 1:22.290 by Cas van Velzen. We do see a bit of lag there. It's a bit of an odd one. Don't know if that showed up on the stream, but that definitely did give us a nasty fright. Down towards the line then, Alan Alexander, 4th fastest at the end of free practice. So we'll be getting on to 20 minutes of qualifying in a moment's time. You see, they're nearest to the line, the number 24. We go to catch on board here, Jason Didona, 2nd in the rookies. It's looking very hopeful here for the American in the 24th, 11th fastest, and by division rankings there at the back of the top 5 at the end of free practice, though, still looking rather hopeful indeed. 599 Zolt Beefgartner went up to 7th fastest at the end of free practice. Nearest to the line, the 313. So we go to catch on board here. If we can go and locate them, that would be with Ben Meredith in the rookies. Currently 4th in division, 8th outright. Across the line, stays there. Number 420 would be nearest to the line to bring about the end of this free practice session. That would be John O'Driscoll down towards the line. We'll have a look at where he found himself over the course of that last lap just gone, but we see now qualifying underway, and you can see a lively paddock then as we get to look on board. First out of the gates appears to be Cas van Velzen, then Melvin Milliston right behind him. So back on board then with Van Velzen as we quickly take a look into what those timetables were concerned with towards the end of free practice. And as for John O'Driscoll, he's in second at the end of that session behind Cas van Velzen. So back on board then with the Dutchman, reveling in what was last week his 4th career win in the Sunday League, and kicked the season off with a bang in his antics alongside the 2 Malwar cars competing on both tiers of the championship, the pros and the rookies, being Labay and Tanguay. Whilst we stay on board then with the BMW of Van Velzen, let's get into the subject of the qualifying predictions here for round 2 of the championship. Only 9 cars appeared on the data. That's because of the continued issues we've had with the servers in the last 24 hours. It meant that gathering some data on the run-in towards today was a little bit sparse. What it does give us, though, is a very clear picture up over the front row. Melvin Milliston and Christian Labay separated by 100th of a second front to back there. It is a bizarre sign indeed. From behind them then, Stefan Nicolai predicted 3rd ahead of David Tanguay 4th, Zot Beefgartner 5th, Ben Cheeseman 6th, Ivan Sanchez 7th, Kyle Jenkins 8th, and Sergio Belder in 9th. Now, a lot of gaps in that data, namely one of them being in the shape of Cas van Velzen, so it's going to be curious to see then what the Flying Dutchman can do on his next race here in Season 5. So we'll stay on board with Cas van Velzen, who'll give us the unofficial tour then of Laguna Seca, starting things off almost immediately on the run around Turn 1. This uphill kink left in towards Turn 2 then at the Andretti hairpin, a double apexed open hairpin left. This is going to be a major attacking spot throughout the race. We've seen throughout the years being here at Laguna Seca. In towards Turn 3 we go. Easy to mess up in this section. You can see for the reasons why, absolutely no runoff to be found, bar a huge pit of gravel. So on the exit of Turn 4, you've really got to keep it in the clear and narrow. One slight deviation over the line and you're sucked into the gravel on either side of it. In through to Turn 5 on the run uphill. In towards Turn 6. And now this is a frightening section of the track coming up here. You can see starting off with this uphill into a dip at Turn 6. Now up the Rahal Straight. In towards Turn 7, 8 and 8A, the most iconic section then of the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, the corkscrew. This has easily taken quite a few drivers out in the last time we were here, only a few rounds ago in the Sunday League towards the trailing end of Season 4. So down through the rainy curve at Turn 9, in towards Turn 10 we go. Down towards Turn 11. So far, so good for Cas van Velzen. It's been a nice, clean lap for the 314. Bar there, just a little bit of trouble on the run around Turn 11. That is going to set him back a few pegs there before he gets into another flying lap. So 123, 135. Then Milliston to the line from behind him. And up to the fastest time, 122.027. You can see the bulk of those problems came from that last corner. Christian Labay now second fastest. Ben Hart in 4th as he crosses the line. Then from behind him, the 696. Ian Skeen takes 4th place off of him with Mercedes AMG. The 61, Kieran Rodd to the line, 5th fastest. And now fastest of the rookies thus far. The 212 across the line, Luke Wilson 6th. Then ahead of them now, going up into 3rd, Alan Alexander in the 315. Then William Bajor, last season's rookies champion, now 4th fastest ahead of Cas van Velzen in that last lap on the 2nd row and alongside Alan Alexander. We see the rest of the times start to roll in there. Thomas Romano, Matthew Sturrock for that matter as well. Jason Didona, 5.8 seconds off in that first lap. So much like Van Velzen, had to have run into some trouble in that first flying lap. Kieran Rodd, 7th fastest, now leading the rookies in the 61 ahead of David Tanguay, last round's rookies race winner. There we see Tyler Vermack no longer wearing the alias of Night Walker. Now, this was a curious case. Of course, we saw Night Walker in the last round. We originally had it in our minds that this mysterious individual who had cropped up out in the last couple of weeks, we saw him in MSC take a race win in Misano, and then we saw him come along and take the rookies win in the opening round of the Sunday League. We were all left wondering who is this mysterious individual. As it turns out, rather unsurprisingly, it was an alias. And an alias for who? Tyler Vermack being the simple answer to that question. We revealed it last night, showing messages, at least just the part saying from Tyler Vermack to us that he is Night Walker. Well, now he's started things on a blank slate. No points to his name coming into round 2. Night Walker nullified from both the rookies and overall championship standings, as well as the success ballast Currently then, Vermaak rejoins on what was previously set to be a run to Ferrari. We see now that he joins Nissan to make what is now, I believe, the 8th manufacturer the South African talent has chosen to compete with here in the Sunday League. That still holds an all-time record, and a baffling one at that. So this is his second Japanese manufacturer after his brief jaunt with Honda in the trailing end of Season 2. That ultimately came to be for a round that had to be A, postponed, and then B, cancelled due to the wave of issues with SimGrid. That was for Season 2, Round 10 at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. We see here Vermaak down towards the line. Makes 5 thousandths up over his last best there, and Milliston still holds on to the fastest time so far, 1:21.765. Out through turn 10, we see here with Christian Lebay trailing on that number 1. Now, Lebay still gunning here for his first ever race win in the Sunday League after 44 races. Sat tantalizingly close to the opportunity, ultimately missed out to Cas van Velzen at the end of round 1 this season. Chased him all the way down to the line. Now we see he lines up upon the front row. So after about 6 minutes into this qualifying session, we see things start to look up for the number 119 onto his 45th race in the Sunday League, and on what looks to be an exciting new chapter with the Ford Motor Company. It looks very likely that we will see a Lebay win this season. Of course, taking a look throughout the season, we're in the moment at round 2. Onto the first endurance race of the season. In the meantime, we just saw there the 333 William Bajor now up to 4th ahead of Vermaak. We're looking here, we're in Laguna Seca. Next round we'll be back onto the standard layout, onto the 60-minute races at Zolder at round 3 of the championship. And then the one I'm thoroughly looking forward to seeing here, the first of the double sprints at the Mount Panorama Circuit in Bathurst, New South Wales. We'll have some updates as well regarding Bathurst, not necessarily this Bathurst, but another very significant event at Bathurst in the later news segment between the end of qualifying and the start of round 2's race. So in the meantime, Lebay's back into the pit lane, 432 thousandths away from the leading McLaren of Milliston. We see him tucked in behind Stefan Nicolai, at this time 21st in that number 5 Mustang. We're about to see, though, with Nicolai down towards the line. Bear in mind, predicted on that second row. So things are looking rather exciting for the number 5, but that's if he can lay in a time capable of that second row. He seems to be struggling at this time to find footing in the Mustang, despite 9 kilos off. In the last lap, we also saw an improvement now to what is a gap of 487 thousandths between Lebay and Milliston. New fastest time, 1:21.710. So as it stands there, Milliston fastest, Lebay second, Van Velzen third, Bajor in 4th to the line. And he's 700ths ahead of Ian Skeen in 5th and 300ths behind Van Velzen in 3rd. So you see there, Skeen in 5th place. Last time we saw a victory for Ian Skeen was back in Season 2 at Bathurst, where he won with Aston Martin to give Aston Martin their first ever 1-2 finish, the first manufacturer to do so in the history of the Sunday League. That would later be shown up in Season 3 when Ford achieved the first ever 1-2-3 at the season premiere in Brands Hatch. Vermaak then down towards the line from 6th. Can't find any room to squeeze up into the top 5. They're still in 6th place. Alan Alexander, the first ever rookie to win outright. He did so in his maiden season last season just gone. Now competes in the top echelon of the Sunday League. He's 7th at the moment in the 315. Also gave Porsche their first ever victory. And he's just been dethroned there by Zach Hesp, one of the new drivers into the Rookies Championship. The Ferrari was temporarily 7th, but now we see with the introduction of Stefan Nicolai to the top 5, he's pushed down to 8th place. Nicolai 4th after the last lap just gone, 400ths away from the podium, courtesy of Cas van Velzen. 696 across the line a moment ago. Now dead on for times there with William Bajor, down to the 1,000th between the Mustang and the Mercedes as we get towards the halfway mark of qualifying here in round 2. The number 40 across the line a moment ago, that was Ben Hart, 18th at this time behind Sam Angel. 119. Back across the line we go then onto another flying lap for Christian Lebay. So he's going to be hunting down pole position, and it is looking very likely to go down to the wire based off of those predictions between Milliston and Lebay. Of course, separated in the qualifying predictions, as explained earlier on, by 100th of a second. It is going to make for an exciting end of things if he's able to reclaim some of that performance seen in the data. Meanwhile, we saw momentarily into the top 10 was Jason Didona, now 2nd in the rookies behind Zach Hesp. Hesp making the last of those top 10s then at the moment. Across the line, then goes to 3-1-4. Cas van Velzen across the line, still 400ths ahead of Stefan Nicolai. Couldn't find anything in that last lap to put himself up towards second place. Bear in mind, the gap between himself and Lebay is just under 400ths of a second, is in fact 33 thousandths of a second to be precise, between Lebay and Van Velzen. Across the line a moment ago, the 40 again, that being Ben Hart, now down 19th, the number 61 to the line, and a big shift in positions there for Kieran Rudd, now up to 13th with Euro Titans Endurance, tucks in between Ben Meredith in 12th and Luke Wilson in 14th to make a Euro Titans division 3rd, 4th and 5th. As we see here with Luke Wilson down towards the line, of course best known on our screens here for being one of the two main talents of the former K1 Esports team and the winning factor that was the 112 car in the GHR Xbox Endurance Championship. Now Luke Wilson competes with Euro Titans, back to where it all began for him and back into the Sunday League after a long hiatus. Now, so we're told this is going to be more of a part-time season, akin to, say, for example, in a real-world application, your sort of Sebastian Ogier-esque career path, and this is going to be a case where he sort of dabbles in and out throughout Season 5, but it's great to see a heritage driver back into the field here, a real veteran of GT, a driver we've been watching for years now in his latest iteration in the 212. We also saw some recent shifts there up in the top 10. Taking a look here, Stefan Nicolai now up to the front row, 67 thousandths clear of Lebay in 3rd place. So we see here with Lebay, he's down towards turn 11. Behind him there we see is Sam Angel in the 719 Aston Martin. They're 18th in this session, 1.219 seconds off the fastest time so far. Locally, only 109 thousandths away from Wilson in 17th. Across the line, Lebay then up to 2nd and ahead of Stefan Nicolai. Bringing the gap now down to 237 thousandths of a second. We also see Jason Didona. We did say it looked to have been in the early doors of this qualifying session, a bit of an early struggle, some signs of fatigue for the 24, and now we see that he's been able to extract some of that performance out of the Nissan, the American up to 4th, leading the rookies by a landslide here in qualifying. 4th overall, leading in division ahead of Zach Hesp and Gioette Boris for the remaining part of the podium. Those two separated by a microscopic single thousandth of a second between the Ferrari and the Porsche, number 70 and number 67. Number 30 across the line a moment ago. And that was for David Tanguay, last round's winner in the rookies division with Bentley, leads the championship ahead of Didona, but this is going to be a rather daunting sign for him, seeing that his championship rival is now leading this qualifying session. And moreover, when you take a look at local positioning on track, we are finding ourselves here not only in division, looking at the scope of 1st all the way down to 6th between these two, but then actually taking a look on track when you throw in the extra categories of the top echelon, you find 4th and 15th. So we're talking a gap of 11 vehicles. It is quite a lot there. 420 across the line a moment ago. And that was John O'Driscoll. Now, of course, we know he's likely to start from the back again today, as per tradition, and that's likely to be the, well, it would have been the same story for the 61, but it appears that he's turned coat then on the whole back row bandits routine. He's on his way down through turn 10 in towards turn 11. Kieran Rudd has actually put a time in qualifying as opposed to staying from the back, so it looks like taking things a little bit more seriously for this season's drive. So 6 minutes left to go in qualifying. Kieran Rudd currently 13th, though I believe there may have been a disconnect up in front. I will have to double check in on that. As of currently then, Lebay are 442 thousandths of a second away from Melvin Milliston, who now opens the taps up to a 1:21.505. Of course, the only ever consecutive champion in the history of the Sunday League. Looking back into the long history of this series now, 4 seasons in, onto its 5th now. With Lebay, it's Season 1's champion. Jason Bush won in Season 2 and a lightning offensive with Lexus that season. Milliston then took back-to-back seasons with McLaren and BMW. It was a truly magnificent time. There is very few, if any, surprises as to why he wears the number 1. Picking up on what has been looking back through the records over last season alone. I mean, taking a look there, the amount of times we see Milliston on the charts, and ultimately that brutal drive through season 4 for him is what's given him this all-time record 16 race wins, hunting his 17th by looks of things today in the last 5 minutes of qualifying. Brings the gap up even further to a 1:21.442, now exactly 4/10 ahead of Labay after the last rebuttal there by the 1:19. We do actually need to update this one here, and now see that reflecting there. 4 race wins for Cas van Velten, getting closer and closer to the metric set at the current joint second between Wesley Kuiper, Jason Bush and Tyler Vermaak. So then 4 minutes left to go. Milliston back in. Labay still out on track on his way down through turn 10 in towards turn 11. In front of him, the number 85. And the, by looks of it there, the number 70. The number 85 being Tyler Vermaak, up to 7th in that last lap just gone. The number 70 being Zach Hesp, still in 10th, but still second in the rookies. Labay brings the gap in by 5 thousandths to 395 thousandths of a second. As we drop in to the last couple of laps of qualifying to be expected. About 3, maybe 4 to squeeze left here for Labay. By the looks of it, the number 17 there coming to the line, Brooklyn Donkin, up to 13th in that last lap. We now figured out who that disconnect was for, Alan Alexander. I think some major takeaways, though, from this qualifying session so far. We just quickly catch on board with the 30 down towards the line. We did just see, and hear for that matter, the screaming cry of a V12 engine. I believe that only could indicate one thing. Yes, the 724, an ultra-late drop-in here by Ethan Oliver. We saw, of course, he and Michael Rushton last round in the twin Aston Martin V12 Vantages. And he'll be reveling in another 40 kilo reduction, but he has not a lot of time to play with it here in qualifying before we get on to the race. He's currently 25th, tucked in behind Thomas Romano and Matthew Sturrock. Of the back of the currently set times, we still yet to see anything then from John O'Driscoll, Sam Greaves, Michael Hunt and Michael Johnson. Curious case towards the back of that field. We see Labay down to the line. Sadly doesn't bring anything up gap-wise there in that last lap, and I think with 2.5 minutes left to go, could this be the signs of him throwing in the towel, settling for a second row start, knowing he can get the drop on the McLaren down towards the Andretti hairpin? Looking over the second row we see here, and this is some of the major takeaways from this session, is how competitive Nissan has been here in round 2 of the championship. Round 1 saw Bentley really rise into a powerful position in Suzuka. For Nissan, we saw not only a top 10 last round by Jason Didona, but now we're looking in the scope of a top 5. Great car control there upon the exit, nearly into the wall. Great save by the 24. Sadly, that looks to have probably compromised this time. You can see, though, he only stands 2 thousandths away as it stands right now from being on the podium. He's on that second row. We know how strong Nissan's start can be. We've seen it in a few other series. So I am very curious to see then what Didona is going to be able to do here, as this stands upon one of his greatest opportunities thus far to take the lead of the Rookies Championship. Of course, only a single round in. We're still early stepped here in Season 5, but he could be making some of the best starts to a potential pursuit of a Rookies Championship here in Season 5. Speaking of the Rookies Championship, we see here with William Bajor, last season's Rookies Champion, the first ever driver to win an NLRL Sunday League Rookies Championship since its implementation in Season 4. You see here for the 33 now, formerly the 33, I should say, was caught out in the very same area that caught out the 24 up and around turn 5 and 6. Actually, just through turn 6 on the run to turn 7. So dropping into the last minute then. Nearest to the line, the number 17. Brooklyn Donkin onto his last flying lap then. In the last lap was invalidated, so it keeps him 13th at this time. You see there, that's pushed down to 14th with the introduction of David Tanguay to the top 10. So at long last there, returning into competitive form in division, second fastest in the rookies. 10th fastest in the session, starts upon that 5th row. Something worth pointing out here for Christian Lebay, of course, receives the second heaviest success ballast, having finished second last race. He has 4 kilos added on top of that Mustang, but I think this has still played quite nicely into his hands looking into the subject of balance of performance. Bear in mind, we have to factor in both the success ballast and the balance of performance even. We find Ford with already 9 kilos off means he only loses about 5 kilos. That still leaves him with a competitive advantage above Ferrari, above Porsche, above BMW, above Nissan, and above Lamborghini. The end of qualifying then, the last of the times rolling in now. We saw Tyler Vermaak finish the session third. That pushes Jason Didona out of the second row. He starts upon the third row alongside Ian Skeen. So for Vermaak, again, worth complimenting here, Nissan is looking very competitive. That's 2 of their cars in the top 5. They hold a joint record there of this top 5 for most amount of cars with the Ford Motor Company second and fourth. So for the second and, for part of the first and part of the second and part of the third row, we will be seeing fighting with Ford and Nissan. Can we keep the success balance as a running total? Yeah, that's how the, I think that's how the regulation's set to work. It caps out at 40 kilos maximum on the car. So if you end up with a drive like, for example, Melvin Millerstein's, as we saw in last season, you will be rounding the season out, driving what is much more close to a small or maybe medium battleship by comparison to where you start the season with a featherweight GT3 car. Now, the idea of that is that it scales and removes itself with time. Is there any where we can see the BOP? Yes, via pitskill.io. If you go on pitskill.io, look at Laguna, Seca, and then categorized by GT3. We have it here as well. Of course, we flash this up on screen every now and again. We see that Nissan, namely in the case of whoever asked the question, I think it was Jason Didona who asked. So if you're curious, over Nissan, that's 4 kilos for the GTR at this time. Now, bear in mind, it's not always accurate. We have noticed as well that they do have a habit of changing their BOPs every now and again, routinely updating so that the performance is more accurately reflected. We've sometimes been behind the bell curve on those updates, and we do own up to that when we're called out on it. It's basically just something we're keeping an eye on from the website. We also have a look into the servers every now and again to see if there are any changes, such as what we saw in the console endurance series last night. There was actually a little bit of deviation between what was available on the website and what was available in the server. Well, at the end of qualifying then, Melvin Millerstein on pole position, Cas van Velten, last round's race winner, down in 7th, 8 thousandths away from his teammate Ian Skeen. The front row then, Millerstein and Lebay, Vermaak and Nikolai on the second row, Didona and Skeen upon the third row. We'll get a full look at the grid in a moment's time. Before we do, though, 2 articles of news for today, starting things off in the World Rally Championship. Elfyn Evans and Scott Martin win in Rally Sweden amidst a Toyota 1, 2, 3, 4, and now takes the lead of the championship away from Oliver Solberg and Elliot Edmondson after their win at the Rally Monte Carlo at the start of the season. So it's looking to be an exciting charge once again for Evans. Missed out at the last step against his teammate Seb Ogier in last season's World Rally Championship, and it looks like for the Brit this time around, the charge has picked up much earlier on than last season. Looking into another article of news very hot off the press then has been from the world of GT racing, namely the very controversial running of this year's Bathurst 12-hour, won by Mercedes AMG Team GMR, driven by Mauro Engel, Michael Grenier and Maxime Martin. And we saw some highlights from that race, and it really did get ugly at one point there. Cars blowing up, animals blowing up, a lot of things blowing up, unfortunately so, in Bathurst. So, looking at the grid here for round 2 of Season 5 of the NLRL Sunday League, we do see there, I believe that was it was a disconnect by Tyler Vermaak. So the Nissan, we just saw that vanish off of the grid just before we got to the read of the qualifying order and of the grid in this session. So that is going to be a very unfortunate start for his race by the looks of it there. So now refreshing upon this new grid, we see Melvin Millerstein still at pole position with Christian Lebay in second, but the newfound third place for Stefan Nikolai with Jason Didona back up to 4th. Ian Skeen then promoted to the top 5 of Cas van Velten, now up to 6th. Alan Alexander 7th, Kieran Rod 8th, Zolt Beefgartner in 9th, and William Bajor in 10th. David Tanguay in 11th, Zach Hesp in 12th, Gioette Boris in 13th place, ahead of Brooklyn Donk in 14th, Ben Meredith in 15th, Sam Angel in 16th, Luke Wilson 17th. And we see here one of the new drivers in for this round of the championship. Getting a look here, this is Harris in the number 34, snuck around the radar here for the majority of the session so far. And we see here, just trying to get a look on board with this one. I believe this is one of the reserve entries for this round of the championship. We see here Michael Harris in the 34. Team FBR's Lexus in 18th place, with Ben Hart 19th and Ivan Sanchez rounding out the top 20. Then from 21st down to 30th, Betterson, Sturrock, Oliver, Romano, O'Driscoll, Greaves, Hunt, Cheeseman, Johnson, and then reluctantly Vermack. We did see there a very, very late entry by Ethan Oliver, the only V12 on this grid. Of course, he and Michael Rushton made that continued effort to keep the V12 on the grid after Christian Lebay left Aston Martin after 4 seasons of competition in the 119 V12 Vantage. Now the 724, the last of the V12s for today's grid. As for Lebay, he's back with the Mustang for his second round into the Sunday League. And it has been a very exciting start of his new chapter then with the Ford Motor Company. Ford second and third on this grid today then. We'll see what they can do at a home race. So then we're about to get on to the 30-second warning. We'll be catching on board then with Melvin Milliston, who'll be leading that charge, hunting down race win number 17, the 2-time champion, the only consecutive and multiple-time champion in Sunday League history. Back on to the charge after what was a day to forget last Sunday in the Suzuka International Racing Course. Down and out performance there, DNF in round 1. Could it be the road to redemption for the 2-time champ? Well, we're about to find out. 30-second warning, so on board then with Melvin Milliston for our formation lap here at round 2. The Laguna Seca Enduro set to kick off here in the Sunday League. Taking a look one last time at the session regulations for today. 90 minutes of racing to follow with a mandatory pit stop of open strategy. That's a minimum of 3.2 seconds. They say it's open fuel time. Really, it's a case where you come in, you stop, and then you get out. Whatever you choose to do before and after is your own volition. So on board with Milliston. Giving the McLaren some serious beans there off the line. You can see he's excited to get the race underway. Lining up alongside him then, a veteran of the series. Bear in mind, both of these two having competed in all 4 series in some capacity. Milliston, the only driver to have achieved a win in every single season of the NLRL Sunday League. Looking back through Season 1's wins, that was won by Wesley Kuiper, Louis Baptiste, Melvin Milliston, Martijn van Manen, and Hayden Puttock back in Season 1. That is quite a curious record indeed. The only driver ever to have achieved a win in all 4 seasons so far. Hasn't got a single season without a race win. Of course, the bulk of those picked up through Season 3. Taking a look through there, he took 5 race wins in Season 3 alone. And then in Season 4, this is where it picked up massively because he rounded out Season 4 in the scope of 9 additional race wins. $16 race wins total in his career in the Sunday League, hunting down his 17th here at race 45 of the NLRL Sunday League, Season 5, Round 2. For our second visit then in the Sunday League to Monterey County, California in just shy under 2 months. We find ourselves back here at Laguna Seca, albeit though under strictly different regulations. We aren't finding ourselves looking onto the advent of much shorter, much snappier rounds. This is the long form variation here, an hour and a half of racing to follow, 90 minutes in all. Making our way then down through the rainy curve, out past the corkscrew. That's going to be a major attacking area, namely for the stability on the cars. We saw back in the trailing end of Season 4 on our last visit to Laguna Seca, that was a real area of contention for a lot of drivers. Mainly just keeping the car facing in a straight line. So many spin-outs down through the corkscrew. How many could we come to expect today then over the course of 90 minutes of racing? Making our way out through Turn 10. Down towards Turn 11 we go. Excuse me. Down towards the line then. 30 cars in all, 15 on either side as we go rolling down to the line here. Season 5, Round 2, the first endurance race of the championship, and we're green and racing here in Monterey County. A brilliant start off the front row there. That caught us by surprise. I can only imagine what it was doing for the rest of the grid. Down towards the Andretti hairpin for the first time. We see LeBay tuck in behind Milliston. In towards turn 2 we go. From behind them, Stefan Nicolai fighting with Jason Dodonna on the second row. Meanwhile, out back, Ethan Oliver and Matthew Sturrock on the back row there. Looked like trouble between the 555 and the 724 on the run in towards turn 2. Nonetheless, then, great start from the front row, immediately separating themselves from the second row behind them. Stefan Nicolai makes third place at the moment, ahead of Jason Dodonna, right on his trail there in that baby blue Nissan GTR. Looking further down the field here, we can see from the 5th place spot backwards, Ian Skeen hunting down a podium here. Right behind him, last round's race winner, Cas van Veltzen, his fellow teammate then at the Euro Titans Endurance team. That's 4 cars of Euro Titans, 5th down at 8th there, with Van Veltzen, Alexander and Rod behind him. Bajor and Beefgartner head-to-head down through the corkscrew. And looking further down the line to go and catch on board with some of the action down through the corkscrew here. We see with Michael Harris's point of view, because he's really in the onslaught zone of everything now. And with Zsolt Beefgartner, we saw his fight just briefly with the likes of William Bajor. You see there, Bajor trying to get the leg up over Kieran Rod. Rod not happy whatsoever. Some argy-bargy there between the two Mustangs into the first official lap of the race. We see here from the point of view of Zsolt Beefgartner, David Tanguay on his tail down towards the Andretti hairpin, on board with the Lexus here of Beefgartner, fending off a fight of 10th place up in front of him. Could very well be in the scope of fighting for 9th. Down through to turn 3. Number 1 still leading up and ahead. Yellow flags out. The 724 now in an incident with the number 19. So that's 2 incidents in 2 laps now for Ethan Oliver. Not a great start for Aston Martin. Zsolt Beefgartner now eyeing up a chance to fight here in 9th place alongside Kieran Rod, recently having lost the position out to William Bajor. Behind him, we see there just fading away a little bit by half a second, David Tanguay in the number 30. The Beefgartner then, he's got the run. 5.4 against 5.4. V8 against V8 here. In towards the corkscrew we go. Up in front, you can see there, that's the second row with the 2 Nissans. We see out past, though, Zach Hesp and David Tanguay get into arms there, down through the corkscrew. Further down the line, Brooklyn Donkin takes the helm over them. You can see running off into the gravel. There was the Bentley of Tanguay, getting a look out back of things here. We see with Ben Hart's point of view, he's caught just at the back of this huge squeeze of cars. He gets the leg up on the inside there. In the background goes John O'Driscoll onto the gravel, and I believe there the 420 in serious trouble. Yes, was the case for John O'Driscoll. You see there, this was coming out of the rainy curve. Not out of the rainy curve, sorry, out through turn 10, just after the rainy curve. There in the background, takes a huge wad of gravel with him. That was the Ferrari of John O'Driscoll. We were watching with Ben Hart in his fight with Sam Angel. We see now with David Tanguay picking up the pieces of what has been a very disastrous second lap of this race so far. As he now falls down to 20th behind Gioet Boris. Looking back up into the top 10 here, we see with Kieran Rod eyeing up in front of him. Ongoing fighting now between Jason Dodonna and Ian Skeen, but he gets things all wrong through turn 5, so that opens the doors up for Alan Alexander to come and have a go for position. Meanwhile, out back, we see Zsolt Beefgartner. Now up and ahead, in the meantime, ahead of William Bajor. We off in the background there, I believe that was Zach Hesp. And yes, it is. Yellow flags out, getting a look back onto the replay as we just saw a little bit of a step out there for the Mercedes of Ian Skeen. Getting a look back on with the live footage you see there in the bottom right. Continued fighting then with Skeen, with Rod, and with Beefgartner. We just saw that was that faint red blur in the background. That was Zach Hesp into the wall. Yellow flag still out at this time. And the 19 into the pit lane. The 67, Gioet Boris now in trouble at the corkscrew. Back into green flag conditions then here in Monterey. A very tough start to this race indeed. 5 minutes in, a lot of action in not a lot of time. See here with Kieran Rod, Jason Dodonna up in front there. You see that bright blue Nissan GTR run all the way out wide. And that allows, by the looks of it there, Cas van Velzen up an easier way in through turn 3. We see here side by side between Beefgartner, between Bajor, and between Rod on the way in towards turn 4. The Mustang and the Lexus there get into arms and turned into the gravel. Goes William Bajor and Zolt Beefgartner. Through goes Brooklyn Donkin into 9th. Meanwhile, we see there the 313 against the 599, and that was Ben Meredith trying to get the leg up over Zolt Beefgartner. We've been watching from the point of view there of Kieran Rod just a moment ago. We see here with William Bajor now forced down quite a few positions in this race. Really not too happy with where he's been placed. Now stuck in behind Sam Angel, looking up through the corkscrew. Not going to look for an early dive in there. He's made his mistakes already, and he's learnt his lesson. Tucked in between Angel and Wilson towards the back of the field. We see with LeBay still within a second then of the leading McLaren of Milliston. These two still distancing themselves from the field. It's worth noting, though, Cas van Velzen is catching up to Stefan Nicolai very, very quickly now. We see here with their fight from the second row. Nicolai third, Van Velzen in fourth. Didona still in the top 5, though, with Nissan picking up the slack then of what was previously 2 Nissans in the top 5. Of course, we saw with Tyler Vermaak now up into the top 15 as we speak. He did end up starting from the back of the field after a disconnect on the opening grid. Worth keeping note then of this fight. 0.4 of a second. Stefan Nicolai versus Cas van Velzen. Let's stay on board with these two here. C to go. Go to C is where we're trying to get at there. The point of view of the attacking car before it's too late here, trying to locate the BMWs as we see, just scrolling across. Trouble for Richard Betterson down at turn 10, the number 75 in trouble. Now on board then with Cas van Velzen with BMW. This is on for the podium at this time, fighting with Nicolai in front. Bit of a wiggle there from the number 5, the back end getting loose through the corkscrew, now through the rainy curve. Down at turn 10 we go. Now, this has been an area where a lot of drivers have been caught out in the past. We saw most recently Richard Betterson was caught out in the 75 Lexus. In towards turn 11 we go. We see Van Velzen just clawing in time over the Mustang. Now, in the straightaways here, it's going to be a tough call as to who comes out on top. Obviously, in the slipstream, he'll have some advantage, but we know how formidable Ford has been in the straightaways. The question therein remains, does he have the bottle under the brakes? Yes, he does. Later onto the brakes goes Cas van Velzen, dives up through the Andretti hairpin and takes third. So in the meantime, coming up on the first 10 minutes of racing, it has been explosive stuff here in Monterey County at the start of the Laguna Seca Enduro. We saw most recently there Van Velzen up to third. It's worth noting as well, Jason Didona is closing in to be up into fourth. We see here with Sam Greaves fighting with Michael Harris. They're on their way through to turn 3 at this time. We see in the meantime the 75 Betterson and the number 67 Gioet Boris both in the pit lane up in front. We do see here fighting between Zach Hesp and William Bajor. We see Bajor looking up the inside on Hesp. This is an area both of them have had trouble in before. The 24 up in front, that's Jason Didona in trouble. Looking to go and find the point of view then of the Nissan. Can we go to locate then? Yes, there is Jason Didona back into the pit lane. Could that be the end of the road here? And yes, sadly it is. Trouble down at the corkscrew. Not sure entirely how it happened, but we do know now in the aftermath of it, Didona out of this race. See here with Sam Angel fighting with Ben Hart. Behind them, William Bajor. We saw briefly that fight with Bajor and Hesp in the time since. He also passed up Luke Wilson, and now we see his efforts to pass up Sam Angel in the Aston Martin. Heading up through to turn 1 then. This is for 13th on the field. Through goes Bajor at turn 1. By the time we hit turn 2 there, the 719 already tucked in behind the 333. We see, though, Angel's got an opportunity here up the inside. Couldn't find anything of it, though. We see here Michael Harris against Michael Johnson. 663 up the inside. Sam Greaves looks to try to sneak his way through. Couldn't find it that time around. We see the 75. We were just trying to catch on board with them just now. But sadly, by the looks of it there, that's Richard Betterson out of this race. That's Ian Skeen. Oh, my word. The 696 turn around at turn 4. The number 70 as well in trouble. What on earth is going on here in Monterey? Every which way we try to look, an accident is happening somewhere else. So after a very chaotic opening 10 minutes, Melvin Milliston leads 2.8 seconds clear of Christian Lebay. Cas van Velten in third with Alan Alexander in fourth. Now Stefan Nicolai drops to the back of the top 5. Kieran Rodd hunting down a top 5 position in his own right there in the number 61, leading in the rookies. Oh, wow. Little bit of a stifled throat here today. Starting to get a bit sick. Brooklyn Donkin in 7th. Zolt Beefgartner in 8th place. Tyler Vermack up to 9th. Fair commendments there for the number 85 starting to the back of the field with Nissan. Now up and ahead of Ben Hart in 10th place. Ben Meredith in a bit of a fight here with plenty of cars in all. William Bajor, Sam Angel and David Tangway. We see Tangway up and alongside Bajor. This is for 12th place. Could soon be for the scope of 11th. Back onto the rookies podium then. The number 30 fighting his way down towards turn 2 alongside the former rookies champion. And there we do see in the background a little bit of contact between Sam Angel and William Bajor. Gioet Borising, who's the guy in the Aston Martin Maloir Racing? Maloir Racing doesn't have an Aston anymore. We do see here recent trouble for the 555. Matthew Sturrock with Team FBR. Drive-through penalty in the pit lane there for speeding. We see already with damages. He's pulling the car to one side. I think I know what comes next here. That could very well be the 555 out of this race. Ian Skeen still in the pit lane then. That makes continued troubles for Mercedes. We saw then out of this race when Sturrock. You see with Tangway at the moment, now up to 2nd in the rookies, having cleared his way ahead of Ben Meredith. 11th in the race so far. Kieran Rodd now leading in the rookies in the number 61. Gioet Barr saying a guy in Aston Martin took me out. Well, I mean, it's a coin toss, really. We only have 2 Astons on the grid, one of which has already left the race. Meanwhile, we do see here down here. Johnson v Sanchez. Harris, though, way late onto the brakes in the 34. Somehow keeps it on the track. I mean, fair play to him. He really dropped the anchors there down at the Andretti hairpin. It's not done him many favours. It's dropped him back in onto Sam Greaves in the fight of 19th. Up in front, there is continued scrapping here between Sam Angel and William Bajor. Up in front is Luke Wilson and Ben Meredith. Behind them, we see Michael Hunt with Team FBR. Michael Johnson hunting him down. These two fighting for the 2nd round in a row now. Johnson has got bigger fish to fry, though, with Sanchez, Harris and Greaves pursuing him feverishly there up towards turn 6. Closest fighting in the top 10, Beefgartner v Donkin for 7th. Those two separate at the last interval by less than 0.3 of a second, the 599. A former heavy hitter, then, of the rookies last season. Now on his first pro season drive, goes toe-to-toe with Donkin. Both of these drivers fought their way up through the rookies last season. This could be one to watch here after those first 10 minutes. See down towards the Andretti hairpin. Nothing came of it there, so we cut across to try and locate then. Out through the 2nd part of the Andretti hairpin, just as we have there. On with the 17, into the gravel goes Donkin. Zolt Beefgartner up to 7th. He's fought his way through that top 10 so far. We see huge sliding in the background. That's for Tyler Vermack, closing in on Brooklyn Donkin. Spent last season with Ford, now drives for BMW. We see in the background that has the choice of a GTR been a little bit too much of a bite to chew then for Tyler Vermack? We saw a big slide. He's done very well so far, mind you. In just about 15 minutes coming up on here in this race, has gone from the back into the top 10 and within the chances here at the moment, by the looks of it, to fight soon for 8th place. In towards the corkscrew. Meanwhile, the rest of the top 10 having dissipated here, the nearest fight to come up is very likely to be the 85 against the 17 on your screens at the moment. But taking a look around the field to see where some of the other fights are going on, we see up in front, Sanchez v Harris, watching from the point of view of Sam Greaves, looking up and around the outside there. Onivan Sanchez has to tuck back in behind the number 91, the Hockeyanos McLaren. In through the rainy curve. Stuck down in 19th at this time. In the meantime, Hunt v Johnson, 15th place up for grabs. Hunt leads in that fight. We can see Bajor up in front, still fighting with Sam Angel, so it's worth getting a look in with these two here for the fight of 13th place. It has been a very bizarre race so far. Only 15 minutes in for William Bajor. Considerable bits of damage there for his 333. Looking back up over the front, we see it's equal distance on all three steps of the podium. 3 different teams in all at this time. As far as it stands team-wise, it definitely looks to be a continued extension over their lead for the Euro Titans Endurance team. Currently, their two highest positions, 3rd and 4th, being Cas van Veltzen and Alan Alexander. Velocity looking to put points on the chart then. The one-man operation that has been for the last 3 seasons now, this being the 3rd for Melvin Milliston. In the immediate fallout then of the 6 hours of Monza, Stefan Nicolai reportedly dropped from 5-Star Esports, now acting as a privateer in this championship, won't be competing on the team's championship. Gio Boris saying it was a Bentley. I think, well, that would point the direction over towards Tangway. By the looks of it there. Just cutting on here with Michael Johnson. Michael Harris hunting him down. Battle of the Michaels, so it seems here from the back of the top 15. Hunt v Johnson v Harris. Number 70 in the pit lane at this moment. We see here with Michael Johnson on board. Currently in the fight for 15th. He's more locally fighting off Michael Harris for control of 16th place. The Lexus looks up the inside. Couldn't find anything of it round turn 5. Up towards turn 6 we go. Bit of a step out there over the rear right for the 663. Up towards turn 6 we go. You can see how much pull the Lexus has on the straightaways in towards the corkscrew. This is often where things do get ugly for these drivers. You can see almost eclipsing that rear view mirror for a moment was the Lexus. Earlier onto the brakes for the rainy curve. It's going to start drawing back in through turn 10. Through to turn 11 we go. This is where that 34 is going to start pulling back in. Meanwhile, we see the number 70. That's Zach Hesp reeling back out onto the track. In the meantime, the 30 now in as well to the pit lane. Cutting away here from their fight, or perhaps maybe just staying on for a little while longer, as we do see things start to liven up now between Harris and Johnson. Meanwhile, Michael Hunt of Team FBR's number 68 BMW continues to break away into the back of that top 15. Up in front, we can see Sam Angel and William Bajor. And 5-Star Jupiter said he's back from feeling sorry for himself. Is that for is that for being an Aston Martin fan? Because believe me, I know the pain. In through the corkscrew. Currently watching on then with the fight of 15th. The Battle of the Michaels, as we called it earlier. Here, Michael Hunt versus Michael Johnson versus Michael Harris. Down towards turn 10 we go. In towards turn 11. Still on board then with Johnson. We were about to cut away from the Porsche here, but I'm glad that we didn't, because things have definitely gone a lot more livelier than we would have expected. We see here Michael Harris definitely has the run here over Michael Johnson. We see in the pit lane the number 30 of David Tangway. Early pit stop then for the Bentley. Last round's rookies division winner. We see here a few of the rookies fighting down in 16th. You can see this is a fantastic little dichotomy between the Lexus and the Porsche. This is maneuverability against straight line speed. In towards turn 4 we go. The 68 was within reach there, but out through turn 4. I think that has just given the necessary leeway over to Harris at this time. Behind them, Greaves, and now the lapped car of Zach Hesp, having come into the pits earlier on with significant damages on his Ferrari. Now cutting away from this fight to take a look in with some of the other drivers. We see just hanging out behind that fight. We see here Sanchez v O'Driscoll. Now, of course, we saw O'Driscoll into the wall not too long ago. That was on the run out through turn 10. Now, as we see for the 420, fortunately having avoided said wall, but did get very close to it. Now fighting for 19th. More on with this one later on. See Zach Hess, big step out through the rainy. Very lucky to have kept it there. We saw the back end jump up and away on that 296. So nearly created a moment of disaster there. We see for O'Driscoll looking at the inside on Sanchez at turn 11. Now McLaren's going to have the run on him down the opening straight here. So by the time we get back towards turn 1, he'll drop back in behind, as we see there. We'll back on with these later on. We see here with Ben Meredith at the back of the top 10 as it stands right now. After what has been so far 20 minutes of racing, we see that Milliston still leads ahead of LeBay in second, Van Belten third, Alexander fourth, Nikolai in fifth, Rod sixth, Beefgartner seventh, Vermack eighth, Donkin ninth. So in the time since, Tyler Vermack has now caught up and overtaken Brooklyn Donkin. It's worth noting, though, on board with the 17, that these two still very close to one another. So we saw stability to be a concern for that Nissan for Tyler Vermack, his current 8th manufacturer. Perhaps is it 9th? I don't know. We lose track now. His last manufacturer was Lamborghini last season. Now he moves over to Nissan with the GTR. It has been a very bizarre day then for Nissan. Of course, we saw trouble for Jason Didonna down at turn 4. Not turn 4, sorry, at the turn 7 at the corkscrew. The 24, as it were, caught out through that section. Seemingly there was an incident there and it wasn't self-inflicted, and he's sadly out of this race. The 85 was set to start up on the second row ahead of Didonna, and then after a disconnect on the opening grid was forced to the back, has have to fight his way back up to the top 10. I mean, it's staggering how much progress he's been able to make in such a short amount of time here. We're only scoping up on about 22 minutes of racing so far of what has been an hour and a half set to happen. And Vermack is in 8th place. Donkin now 1.3 seconds away. We see for Meredith still very closely pursued out back there by Sam Angel and Ben Hart. We see for William Bergeau, who was behind Ben Hart for some time here, with most recently running out wide. The number 40 may have just opened the door up to last season's Rookies champion. The 333 hunting him down from behind. We see again the battle of the Michaels, but now interjected by Luke Wilson in the number 212. Harris v Hunt then. This is for 14th on the grid. And I believe, just having a look around here, I think, yes, no, we were out the Bentley. I believe the Bentley of David Tanguay is out of this race. So we saw him in the pit lane earlier on in the number 30. We were curious to know why he'd come in so early, whether it was a strategic call or not. But as it comes to be, that was his white flag, as it were. That was a case where he's out of this race. Meanwhile, we see here Wilson v Harris. Things get ugly down through the corkscrew. Wilson not too particularly pleased by that one. Now forced into the iron sights of Michael Johnson down through the rainy curve. Hunting down Michael Harris in the number 34. Going around the outside at turn 10, squeezed onto the gravel. The 212 steps out sideways, drops in behind Michael Johnson. Zach Hesp alongside him, looking to unlap from the 212 as things go from bad to worse there for Luke Wilson in the scope of 2 corners. As for Hunt, now hunting down Hart and Bajor, we see here for the 68. For obvious reasons, we've had to elongate his name, going by the government names at this time. I daren't say, well, his friends do call him Mike, I will say that much. That's what we were told, at least last round. We can't call him that, for obvious reasons. I think you know where this is going if we were to do that. You know, it's in the same way if we had a driver, you know, we'd probably have to, you know, surname Oxlong, first name Mike, probably would have to call him Michael. In the same vein there. Nonetheless, Hunt having a great time here. Currently division 3rd in the rookies. So looking at a podium here today, that's going to advance his position quite significantly in the rookies championship by the end of this round if he's able to hold on to it. Bear in mind, Harris behind him, though registered as a reserve, will eventually contribute points to the rookies championship. That's the number 34. Had a bit of an almost 4-wheel slide there in the Lexus up and ahead of Johnson in 16th. That's division, looking at it there, 5th. At this time for the rookies, if we had to consider Harris as part of those ranks. For the other two reserves, Stefan Nikolai we saw last season and Tyler Vermack we've seen plenty of seasons. So neither of those two constitute as rookies. They won't be counting towards the rookie standings. Unlike, you know, some drivers who maybe would operate under an alias to contribute to the rookie standings, not naming any names and not showing any drivers particularly that would be doing such a thing. So on board with Ben Meredith, currently second in the rookies. We see getting closer and closer to him from behind Sam Angel. We saw them last season with Lexus. This move to Aston Martin, it was a mixed bag response, but now we see for the 719, he is comfortable with that car. Near enough, as we head out through turn 5. Boy, does commentators' curse have a very awful way of working. In through to turn 6. Recent update then, Hunt v Hart, 13th place up for grabs here. The 68 pursuing the 40, the BMWs going head-to-head here. Behind them, Michael Harris and Michael Johnson. So, potential round 2 coming up at the Battle of the Michaels. This time for 14th on the field, as we see Harris really get the burners on in that second sector. My word, but he may fly a little too close to the sun here with how much momentum he chooses to carry in that Lexus. Number 34 barreled out through the rainy curve, so nearly off the track. We see that behind him. Johnson, in the dirty air of the Lexus, steps out onto the gravel for a moment. Things are getting very lively up in this current fight. Meanwhile, having a look up here, this is the fight on the podium. Alan Alexander against Cas van Veltzen. These two teammates, of course, for the Euro Titans Endurance team, the 314 and the 315. Looking on board then with these two. Let's go to catch on board with either side of it. We do quickly see here the emergence of another fight inside the top 10. This is Zot Beefgartner versus Kieran Rodd in towards the corkscrew. Lexus versus Ford. Tyler Vermack 4.6 seconds behind them with the Nissan. If these two continue to fight, that could be easier leeway into a top 3 row finish. Presently then, that's the fight of 6th, and we can cut directly across over to the fight of 3rd, but I think we'll stay on board with the former as opposed to the latter, as we can see things much closer from the point of view of Zot Beefgartner. On board then with the number 599 pursuing Kieran Rodd at the forefront of the rookies division in this race so far. Coming up onto the first 30 minutes of racing. Bear in mind, an hour and a half here. It's already been a very lively first third, with 2 more thirds of racing left to go. It can only get better from here. On board with the 599. 696 in trouble again. That's for Ian Skeen. Yellow flags out in Sector 2 as we go to catch on board with the Mercedes. In a curious case here, we do see this is Ian Skeen now re-emerging onto the track. The green flags shown for the AMG. Skeen down through the corkscrew, 21st in this race. It has been a troubled day for Mercedes AMG. Evidently with Sturridge out of this race. Sturrock. I had him mixed up with Surridge, a different driver. Sturrock out of this race, of course, and then Skeen in even more trouble. Speaking of trouble, we're going to go over to find the number 70 Ferrari. As we see here in the wall, that is Zach Hesp. Big trouble again, finds its way over to the number 70. He's been in routine trouble over the course of this race so far. You can see damage to the rear aero in his most recent incident between turns 3 and 4. Hesp on his way down towards turn 5. You can see here with that damaged rear aero, a very hefty slide there, but it bounces back in the opposite direction. If he held that one out, that would have been fantastic, but he's back into the pit lane. Same as Skeen for that matter then. So the question there remains, what is the future looking like for these two in this round of the championship? We saw there a little blip into there, I think. Is that appearing in the pits? That looked to have been Rodd blipping in and out, and we did see this yesterday in the Console Endurance Series round where he was blipping in and out of the paddock. It was a very confusing time then. You can only imagine then what the 599 is seeing in this time. We take a look around the field to see that battling from around the top 10 is dissipated now, with Ben Meredith 2.8 seconds up the road from Sam Angel in 11th. With Harris, though, still pursuing Hart. The chances there for 12th place still remain on the table for Team FBR's number 34 Lexus. With their number 68, their fellow Team FBR car, the BMW of Michael Hunt, right behind. We will see here with the Lexus of Harris. This is in the fight for 12th place. He gets up and around the outside on the run in towards turn 5, but with harder line to follow there through turn 5. Tucks back in behind Ben Hart from 5-Star Esports. Looking on then with Zolt Beefgartner on the exit of turn 11. This is back into that fight of 6th place from earlier on. Back on with the 599 on the run up towards turn 1 and 2. You see just up in front there, that's the last of the top 5 positions. That bright pink and green Mustang, that's the number 5 of Stefan Nikolai. You see there, little step out for Kieran Rod. Is that going to be the final nail in the coffin for a potential move to 6th for Beefgartner? Evidently not. They're out through turn 4. Also stepped up over the curbs. Car got shoved around a little bit. That sector very easy to lose your footing. So staying on board with this fight for 6th place as we take a look inside of the standings here after the first 30 minutes of racing. As it stands there, Milliston still leads ahead of LeBay, Van Velsen 3rd, Alexander in 4th, Nikolai 5th, Rod 6th as we see in front here of Beefgartner in 7th place. The Lexus and the Ford still clashing heads here from the 3rd row. From the sort of back end, I should say, the 3rd row onto the 4th. You see behind is Tyler Vermack in 8th place, Brooklyn Donkin in 9th with Ben Meredith in 10th. We are looking here to potentially see a move up to 6th place for Zolt Beefgartner. He looks at the inside on the 61, couldn't find any footing of it though. These two properly running the ragged edge in the Mustang and the Lexus. Two sides of the same coin here, two V8 juggernauts. 5.4 litre naturally aspirated engines there. A proper sonorous cry on the way down towards turn 2 at the Andretti hairpin. The right kind of noise here for an American racetrack. So further outside the top 10, Sam Angel in 11th, Ben Hart in 12th, Michael Harris in 13th, Michael Hunt in 14th, and Michael Johnson in 15th. Luke Wilson 16th, John O'Driscoll 17th, Ivan Sanchez 18th, Sam Greaves 19th, and Ian Skeen in 20th. Down, what is the current scope of, if Skeen is to perhaps retire from this race, that would make the current scope of 11 cars out of this race in what has been absolutely feral here in Laguna Seca. The Sunday League starting grid is a brutal one. So many drivers already out here in round 2. Started off on a grid of 30 cars, potentially down to 19 here after the first 30 minutes. Well, after 12 hours of Bathurst, and by contrast, the 6 hours of Monza yesterday on the Console Endurance Series is anything to go by. The moment you introduce endurance racing to the format, it gets very brutal very, very quickly. You see here from Beefgartner's point of view, still absolutely on the knife edge to chase down the 61. Bear in mind, slowly chipping away at the gap from behind. You see there the number 85 of Tyler Vermack. We'll catch on with the fight of 6th place a little later on, though. We go to take a look down here. Harris v Hunt in towards the corkscrew. We see there Luke Wilson still trying to find his footing around these two. As we see, looking potentially around the outside of the Rainy. Wilson commits to it. The 212 up in front of the 34. The 34 onto the gravel. Big step. Fishtails there. Holds the brakes. Can he keep it? By the looks of it, yes. Just onto the gravel. Very good save, though, by Michael Harris. We know how easily it can go south in that sector. Did I speak too soon? No, just millimetres from the wall. Oh, we can't have that many saves, surely. That's got to be a pit lane run for Harris at this time. We see coming in. Oh, my word. Coming into the pits there. Ivan Sanchez in the 91 McLaren. You see that the 34 has every right to commit to staying out. A curious one then. Well, that was a little too close for comfort there for the 34, especially in the regards to a wipeout. You see here for Luke Wilson, fighting for the current stead of a division podium with Michael Hunt up in front. That's for 13th overall on the grid. You can see the BMW just up in front there, tucked in behind the number 40, the black and gold of Ben Hart up in 12th place. Meanwhile, just looking back in here, in the fight of 6th, last interval showed very close fighting. Now as it dissipates out to half a second on the run down towards the Andretti hairpin. 61 against the 599. It's still in active fighting here, but a lot less ragged than it's been in the last couple of laps here. These two starting to simmer down onto the concept of running into the pits not too far from now. A lot of the drivers will be looking around the 45-minute mark for that half and half deal. We see up in front there the 40. A bit of a snap out through turn 10. Is that inviting in opportunities from the 68? One does wonder. Coming into the pits, Well, for Michael Hunt, he'll be hoping for mistakes like that again. Down towards the Andretti hairpin. It's worth noting as well, very close to one another there. Sam Greaves, Michael Johnson. Greaves around the outside at turn 1. Now up in the 16th place, goes to 96. So, going to get a look on with some of the drivers once again. We return to the view here of that fight of 6th place back on once again with Zolt Beefgartner. Now, I feel like we've had the defending angle of it for quite some time. It would be rather refreshing then to go and have a look with some of the other fights here. We see with Michael Hunt hunting down Ben Hart's got the leg up on him through turn 6. Now on the run to turn 7. The 68 up to 12th. We see in the background there, Luke Wilson looking to get side by side with Ben Hart. Very nearly careens into the rear left quarter of Hunt. Watching here then, as Luke Wilson picks up in a hot pursuit in the fight of 12th place here from the point of view of Michael Hunt. Down towards turn 10 we go. Turn 11 coming up very quickly. You can see the McLaren already positioning for the inside. Couldn't find it at turn 11 though. Hoping then for this. Running out wide then at turn 11. That's not gone well for Hunt. Drops not 1, but by looks of it, there 2 positions. Ben Hart back up in front of him. Now he's looking more realistically at the fight of 13th place down to the Andretti hairpin. Very late on the brakes. Back immediately into the pursuit. Now, easy mistake to make is to overexert yourself when you get overtaken. It's easy to get tilted like that. And by the looks of it here, Hunt hasn't fallen into the same pitfall. He's kept things very level-headed in that opening sector. I think the only signs of frustration we saw there were under the brakes into turn 2. We see, though, oh, maybe I spoke a little too soon. Steps out there and drops out of 14th place. John O'Driscoll soars on past him. This is what he's got to do now. He's just got to sort of relax a little bit, knowing as well for the bulk of pit stops here coming up in about 8 or so minutes. So we might have the opportunity here for an earlier pit stop to perhaps try and undercut the rest of the field. You can tell from the attitude there of the 68's rear end that it is losing a lot of ground. Those tyres definitely worse for wear at this time. We see here from the 61's point of view. In the meantime, Beefgartner has come into the pit, so following the same line of logic, we now see the fight of 5th place kick off between 2 Mustangs, one of which at the forefront of the rookies then. We're on board with Kieran Rodd in the number 61, pursuing Stefan Nikolai in that bright green and pink number 5. Meanwhile, the 119 close by to another car, but as we saw, he was approaching lap traffic not too long ago. So that's the 34 he was along with there. Just passing up past Michael Harris with Lexus. Out towards turn 7. Through turn 9 into turn 10. It's worth pointing out, decent chunk of vehicles with the 40, the 420 and the 212 looking to battle not long from now. That would be the number 40 of Ben Hart, the number 420 of John O'Driscoll, the number 212 of Luke Wilson. Watching here with Rod as he starts to chip away at Stefan Nikolai. Mustang against Mustang here for the last of those top 5 positions. We're going to look to go and catch on board in a moment's time with the fighting down out past the top 10. It is going to be a curious case here for O'Driscoll v Hart. We saw, of course, the BMW was flagging a few laps ago for available grip. It's been all over the shop when it comes to positions there. Has gone up, has gone down. It's not able to find stable footing. In the time since, the 663 is in trouble. And I believe that is, yes, Michael Johnson. And I believe as well that 663 is now out of this race as well. A pity then. Another DNF on what is a growing list of vehicles out of this race today. We see here with John O'Driscoll. Looking up on the inside here, the 40, the gap just narrowing in front of him. You can see the 40's back end snapping away from him. Now, that could be a hybrid issue as well. Not only would it be the case that the rear tyres are starting to wear out quite a bit, you can see there some scrapes and some bumps on the back end. Could there be some compound rear aero damage on the 40? Would not be unrealistic to suggest. We're on board with O'Driscoll here, just having a look in with the fighting for 11th place on the field. Up in front, Luke Wilson kicks a bunch of dust into the eyes of the 40 and the 420. We are actively monitoring as well that fight between the 5 and the 61. We might have to cut on board with them in a moment's time. We do see here, this is a three-way fight between O'Driscoll, Hart, and now Hunt in the mix as well. Meanwhile, the 85 now gets the leg up over Stefan Nikolai. He's already dropped well behind the 61. We saw there Tyler Vermack just get up and around on the exit of turn 2 into turn 3 over Stefan Nikolai. So back on board with these three. On with O'Driscoll v Hart v Hunt. You see here, O'Driscoll early attitude in towards the inside line. He's trying to get inside Hart's head here. Just under 50 minutes left to go then in this race. So far, 40 minutes in to the Laguna Seca Enduro here at round 2. Looking at the inside, try and go for it, but you see that the sausage curb caught him out on the right-hand side. O'Driscoll narrowly avoided disaster on his way up towards turn 5. Bear in mind, behind him, Michael Hunt is now looking to posture himself for a position change here. You can see the BMW getting a little bit squirrely, sizing up the inside line, backed out of it before turn 5, in towards turn 6 and turn 7. Up through the Rahal Straight. Meanwhile, we see here for Ben Hart, struggling to keep a lid on that BMW. The back end, it's so obvious now, the back end's cooked out. The Ferrari still has more to give. We know it's got some of the best tyre conservation in GT3 at the moment on Assetto Corsa Competizione. Neither of these two look at moving into the pit lane anytime soon. In the background, you can see approaching. As we were taking a look at the background, we see in the foreground collision between Hart and O'Driscoll. Hunt slides on through here to go side by side with Hart. O'Driscoll not happy whatsoever. The two BMWs up in front now side by side, watching from O'Driscoll's point of view. As we see there, Hunt up the inside, Hart around the outside. O'Driscoll moves over for the arrival of Sanchez. But there, as we see collision up in front, turn around goes Hunt. Looking on the replays, our eyes darting all over the monitors here to try and figure out what on earth happened. In the meantime, we saw there lapping on past was Melvin Milliston. This was on the second part of the Andretti hairpin, went the long way around, but then got turned around by Ben Hart, was Michael Hunt. So then, as fighting all but dissolves there from the back of the, just outside of the top 10 parameter towards the back of the top 15, looking further around the field for future fighting. There is still something to be spoken of here with Nikolai back out in front of Vermack. Dropping in towards the halfway mark of the race, not too far from now, a few minutes from it as a matter of fact. Fighting still continues inside of the top 10. We'll be taking a look in a few minutes' time then of the scope of the current standings. We do know, as far as we're concerned at this time, leading pair still Milliston from LeBay. Third on the field at this time is Van Veltzen. The 315 of Alan Alexander fourth. It has been a very confusing one trying to track the progress of Vermack over the last couple of months in Sunday League. Has been a little bit all over the shop when it comes to what his future predictions are for competing. I mean, it was a case coming in towards the end of season 4. We were saying this was going to be his last season, and this was definitively the end. And even before that, he said he was going to be competing next season with Ferrari, and now we come into it and he was competing under an alias, and now he's competing with Nissan. It's either a case where he's trying to move 5 steps ahead, or he just doesn't know what his decisions are. I mean, regardless, it's good to see him back in the sport, but albeit very confusing, and for him, very inconvenient, because now he starts this off with no points, where he could have started around before, dropped the pretenses of being Nightwalker, and had points. Neither here nor there. You see here in the fight of 5th place then, Stefan Nikolai versus Tyler Vermack for a second time then in this leg of the race. Meanwhile, we saw into the pits earlier on the 314, Cas Van Veltzen into the pits. Now on his way out. with open strategy as well. The drivers don't have to necessarily consider tyres. Of course, they will be thinking about it. It is a risky business indeed to go just for petrol and no tyres. Going up into the corkscrew then, we see there very nearly was side-by-side action between Nikolai and Vermaak as things filter out through turn 8 in towards turn 9. Through the rainy curve, back on board then with Vermaak. This is in the fight for 5th place against Stefan Nikolai. We're curious to see what is it looking like from the defending angle. Going to catch on board with some of the Ford cars. We see here with Hartvey O'Driscoll picking back up where they left off. On board then with Stefan Nikolai. That's the calendar. Press the wrong button. On board then from the defending angle. Bear in mind, both of these drivers registered as the reserves here, so we don't have actually any graphics for either of them until they commit to a full-time drive. The 85 against the number 5.
We are halfway through. Keep pushing.
We see here right upon the exit of the Andretti hairpin, the 85 looking to go around the outside at turn 3. Risky area to attempt. It's squeezed out there past turn 3, still in behind the Mustang on the run towards turn 4. So, as we heard a moment ago, halfway into the race, taking a look at the standings on this continued fight going on at this time for 4th place. We see into the pits goes the race leader, as we have reported their early pit stop now for Christian Lebay. We didn't note this one earlier on, but now we do see the aftermath of it. And it's going to be curious to see where does Milliston filter in later down the line. Of course, we are expecting to be back into the lead of this race for his 17th possible race win. Watching still with the fight of 4th, soon to be upgraded to a fight of 3rd, the way things are going lately. Alan Alexander into the pit lane now with Kieran Rodd soon possibly to follow. So it might not be worth picking up on the conversation of positioning just yet, as it looks like, as predicted, we're into a huge spree of pit stops. The 61 stays out. Kieran Rodd moves into the lead here in Laguna Seca. See, making their way out of the pits at this time. We saw rolling. The 212 was Luke Wilson. Continuing to watch here what has now been upgraded to a fight of 2nd between Stefan Nikolai and Tyler Vermaak. In towards turn 3, mimicking last lap there, trying to go up and around the outside. Does he find any more success this time around? No. Once again, very difficult area to make moves up. In through to turn 4, these two practically pushing each other now down towards turn 5. Watching here over the rear view. Hiding underneath the wing is the Nissan, number 85. On the exit there of turn 5, in towards turn 6. This dip on the inside. Good for the front engine cars. They don't often lose balance in this area. The mid-engine cars, though, definitely have struggled. In the pits at this time, we see goes Ben Hart and Sam Angel, for that matter. Watching with these two here, their continued fight for 2nd on the field. We saw it was 4th not long ago. Realistically, it's going to be for, I think at the end of this race here, 5th. Both of them chasing each other into the pit lanes there. Into the pits goes Stefan Nikolai and Tyler Vermaak. We'll pick up with those two later on. We see here with Christian Lebay. Now up and ahead of Cas Van Velzen by 9/10 of a second. Van Velzen has the chances here to stick into the slipstream. If he can stay close, follow the line then of that 119. Could chip away at things here and find his way up to 2nd by the end of this race. 42 minutes left to go. Alan Alexander then filters in behind these two. 8th at the moment, soon to return then into the top 5. Ben Meredith stays out to form up the basis of, I believe, looking at it there, that would be 3rd place with the number 1 up in front of him. Melvin Milliston into 2nd. You see here, really having brought some ground in. We're watching with Christian Lebay at the moment, Season 1's champion, fighting with Cas Van Velzen, who just last round took the race win in Suzuka in a fight against the 119. These two meet again, this time under the pretenses of what currently occupies a fight of 4th place. Now that'll upgrade over the course of this race in towards a podium and in towards what is going to be, by predictions here, 2nd at the end of this race. But for the time being, with the 61 and the 313 still yet to have come into the pits, as I say that, we are seeing it on the maps there that the 61 of Kieran Rodd is into the pit lane now as we speak. So quickly just cutting away from the 119 to check in with the 61. Into the pits goes Kieran Rodd with Ford. And that's going to put Melvin Milliston back into the lead of this race here. We see with Rod now in the pits. And still on the charts here to lead in the rookies. So it is looking to be a very hopeful day for Euro Titans, where they'll have missed out, sadly, on a chance of an overall race win. They can still rest easy with the knowledge they are coming away from this with a very likely chance of that rookies win. In the time since, we did see stepping back massively, an incident there for Cas van Velzen. Not enough to end his race, but enough to put 2.7 seconds up behind that of Christian Lebay. We see leaving the pits there was Hunt in the number 68, Team FBR, 15th in this race at this time. Getting more of a fleshed out image now of what the grid is going to look like. Number 313, though, still yet to come into the pits. Ben Meredith taking this one the longest yard here. You see for John O'Driscoll also going the extra mile here, the 420. Still yet to have come in. 39, just shy of 40 minutes left to go in this race. Behind them, you see is Michael Harris down in 16th. Zolt Beefgartner just up in front there, but already having taken his mandatory pit stop today. You see here for Meredith, what are the scopes of the 313 coming into the pits on this lap? Well, we see here with Ben Meredith, spent some time last season back in season 4 with Porsche, now commits to a drive with Ferrari. Down towards the line, then into the pits he goes, among the last drivers to do so in today's session. Question therein remains for O'Driscoll. Will he be following on the same motion here in the 420? Meanwhile, the grid down to what is effectively, I think, 17 active cars from what started upon a grid of 30 today. It is a brutal reminder of why tracks like these only favour smaller grids. Because we end up in situations like this where we're shy of nearly 50% of the starting grid today. It has been absolutely brutal. It does make one shudder to imagine what is going to happen down in Bathurst 2 rounds from now in the first double sprint of the season. Of course, double the point scoring opportunities, double the available races, but with that, half the amount of time, and under those maths, still double the amount of action. I wonder what the maths of that is going to look like when you factor in with half the amount of time. Is that going to make what? Quadruple the action because they're having to squeeze a full race's length into 2 half-length races. We'll get on to that when we get to Bathurst. Right now, though, in round 2, we're on board with O'Driscoll. So getting a look at things then on the wider grid, still on board with John O'Driscoll as the rest of the grid has now started to fall into place. He's the last puzzle piece yet to fit in. The last driver set to do a mandatory pit stop. Melvin Milliston leads them with the fastest lap ahead of Christian Lebay, Cas van Velzen third, with Alan Alexander in 4th, Zolt Beefgartner in 5th, and John O'Driscoll at the moment in 6th, set to come into the pits not long from now in the 420. Do we see him into the pits this lap? No. For the number 420, he's going long with this one here. Behind him, we see the number 61 set to return to the lead of the rookies division then. That's Kieran Rodd in the number 61 ahead of Stefan Nicolai and Tyler Vermack. Now separated in the middle there by Ivan Sanchez's number 91 down in 17th place. At the back of the top 10 then is Brooklyn Donkin ahead of Ben Meredith in 11th, Sam Angel in 12th with Luke Wilson in 13th, Ben Hart in 14th, Michael Hunt in 15th and Michael Harris in 16th. Ivan Sanchez 17th. And Ian Skeen in the pit lane currently from 18th. We're going to see the real tally of how many drivers we missed out on at the end of this race. I mean, it is an absolutely brutal statistic we're seeing here. Running up the numbers, we're down some 13 drivers in this race. To my knowledge, it could be more. 1.3 seconds between Nicolai and Vermack. So the chances for these two to continue to fight for position remains, albeit not inside the top 5 anymore. These two fighting what currently holds of 8th place. Meanwhile, still no news on the 420's arrival to the pit lane. O'Driscoll stays out into lap 38. So you see here for the 85 versus the number 5. Still going on in this time currently for P8. Soon to be P7 then whenever we do see O'Driscoll into the pit lane. That's the last puzzle piece in the grand scheme. 599 having some connection troubles there. That's for Zolt Beefgartner. Little bit of worries there for the Lexus. Currently sandwiched in between the 68 and the 420 on track at this time, with Beefgartner looking at a chance there of a top 5 finish. In the time since then, we see Vermack up and around Nikolai. Into 8th place goes the number 85 Nissan. Catch on with these two later on down the line. We see here with Melvin Milliston on the scopes then for the Swedes' 17th race win. I mean, it is a unbridled statistic, unparalleled. Second to none and then some. What left is there to say of a performance like Milliston's? It is generational here in the Sunday League, history defining. 2 championships, 16 race wins, and he's 34.5 minutes away from his 17th. You see him running up here towards Ben Meredith in 11th place. Bear in mind though for Milliston, well yes, he DNF'd in Suzuka. He's starting things off a round down, and moreover, he's going to be a victim of his own success here, because he will find himself staring down, at this current time, 5 kilos worth of success ballast. Now, bringing back up the current scope of the way things look for ballast, this is in the new regulations for Season 5. This is what the current run of success ballast is looking like for Van Veltzen, LeBay and Beefgartner, as it does effectively affect the top 4. Bear in mind for Beefgartner, it is worth pointing out, we don't know yet if it is 2 or 1, as the results for P3 were nullified. That was for Nightwalker, who was an alias for Tyler Vermack and then later disqualified from the standings in its entirety. So it's either 2 or 1. Of course, we'll have a more precise understanding of that when we head to the next round coming up in Zolder. We do see, though, it will be 5 kilos on board if he is to finish P1 today. For Christian LeBay, currently eyeing up the scope of things then in P2. We did make the mistake there of saying it was plus 4 kilos. No, it's actually going to be plus 3. So he's currently only got 3 kilos on board, and he'll be seeing an additional 3 if he finishes second today. That'll bring him up currently to the tally of 6 kilos overweight on the car. Milliston, this will be the first of it. It's worth pointing out here, just taking a look in with the current run of things in, oh, hang on a second. No, don't tell me. I think, oh my word, yes, we have the number 119, the Mustang of Christian LeBay, appears to have disconnected from the field, from second in this race. We were rather concerned coming in towards this round about the stability of the server, and we ran some tests on the run in towards today. Everything seemed okay. Of course, we had quite a few issues yesterday, not only here on NLRL, but so I'm informed by a few associates across the board for G-Portal servers in last night's event in Monza. And now that definitely does seem to be the worst case scenario for LeBay. Appears to have disconnected from the race. Involuntarily, might I add. Also, yeah, it's definitely worth pointing out, half the grid appears to have also disconnected along with it. So, a confusing turn of events here. We also see rejoining the field appears to be the 315. There was also a disconnect for Alan Alexander. And also for Luke Wilson, so we're informed as well, having rejoined the field there. That is a worrying sign, nonetheless, here, for what is currently going on this grid. We are going to make a note of that one, dropping into the last 30 minutes here. Milliston leading away from Van Veltzen second. Beefgartner now third in this race. We see here with the Lexus, number 599. Now, this is going to be a difficult situation because, of course, with 16 cars still left on the field, but quite a considerable chunk of the driver base having disconnected, now reconnected. It's a tough statement here as to what's going to be the going factor for the race result. You do see here, dropping in behind Kieran Rodd, John O'Driscoll, showing respect to his fellow back row bandit, though of course these two separated on their ideology in today's race, with Kieran Rodd deciding to qualify. O'Driscoll started toward the back in the 420, still yet to have pitted with 30 minutes left to go. We'll stay on board with the fight for 6th place between Tyler Vermaak and Stefan Nicolai. We'll be back with you in just a moment's time. And so we're back, still watching in then with the fight of Vermaak v Nicolai. So is the claim at the moment that half the grid has disconnected. I mean, there has been a sizable drop-off, proofs in the pudding there, but we did see also a lot of incidents at the start of this race. So it's tough to call how many of them were DNFs, how many of them were DCs. It's a difficult call. It seems in this case that not everyone's going to be happy with whatever gets decided, whether or not, you know, say, for example, they rerun the event, which is one likely suggestion. It could be considered unfair to the drivers who have made it to the end of the race. It could be very well the case if they're awarded half points. Again, it's the argument that it's unfair. No one side of the argument wins in this situation. It can, and it will, so it seems. With 27, just under 28 minutes left to go. Though, well, the information precisely on that, we don't know how many of them were disconnects again, and we don't know how many of them were DNFs. So it's worth pointing out, a lot of the drivers will have to be sort of interviewed after the race to figure it out. Will there be a restart, asks Gioette Boris. Unlikely in this situation. Unlikely, just given, A, the precarious nature of how many drivers we've lost and to how many were related to disconnects. Moreover, because we are now 3/4 of the way through... well, near enough 3/4 of the way through a 90-minute race. "27 minutes left to go. You see with Vermaak at the moment still clear of Nicolai. This is in a continued pursuit then for a spot in the top 5 as it stands. Taking a look then, 26.5 minutes left to go. A considerable toll of drivers having disconnected recently, but how many of that makes up the proportion of the, looking here, 14 DNFs we've had today, we don't yet have a proper understanding of. We do know at the baseline of it all, though, this has been one of the largest amounts of drivers to have not finished a race off of a starting grid we've seen in the Sunday League. And now we've seen some disastrous races before, but few of them have ended up with over, well, almost actually coming up here on 50% of the grid gone. Just under 26 minutes left to go then. Melvin Milliston leads with the fastest lap. Casper van Veltzen second. Zolt Beefgartner third. Kieran Rodd fourth. Tyler Vermaak fifth. And Stefan Nicolai in sixth. Brooklyn Donkin in seventh. As we see here, emerging from the pits is John O'Driscoll. Question is, will he emerge 8th ahead of Ben Meredith as he makes his way to the limiter line? The Ferrari closing in, and as we see there, up to 8th goes Meredith. O'Driscoll down to 9th. Sam Angel in 10th place. Ben Hart in 11th with Michael Hunn in 12th place. Michael Harris in 13th and Ivan Sanchez in 14th. Alan Alexander in 15th and Luke Wilson in 16th. A confusing day here at Laguna Seca. Now, one thing I would propose, looking at this from my point of view, now, you don't have to take what I'm saying here, I'm just a commentator, but one suggestion would be just an additional round to make it an 11-round championship. The reason I say this is because we received so many donations last night in the 6 hours of Monza to where that would effectively cover any broadcasting fees for an additional round. So it's an option if you'd like to explore that option, and I'm sure we can spin the wheel and figure out what options they're in, unless we have a second race at Laguna Seca, which is also fine. We'll see, though, what race control makes the decision on. So far, for us, then, it's 24 minutes left in the race. There is still a checkered flag to be seen here in Seca. Oh, that's a... We'll wait for official confirmation on that. If you're suggesting it, that's one thing. If you're saying it's another. Sorry, we're just having a moment there to speak with race control. 24 minutes left to go at the moment. There may be a possible change of the current running at the moment. I'll need that in writing if that is what's going to happen here, so do let me know on that one. Watching here with Sam Angel. Okay, never mind. Just to give some context as to why we seemingly were talking into thin air at no one, we were having a brief conversation just now with some of the folks at Race Control. There was the potential suggestion of a red flag into 30-minute restart for the end of this race. That's been heel turned. That's not going to happen. So as far as it stands right now, we are green, ready to go another 22 minutes to the checkered flag. Now, I would still put on the table the suggestion from earlier, and that is to add an additional 11th round onto the end, which is just Seca again, because we received so many donations yesterday, and again, big thanks to Christian LeBay for that 40 gifted subs. I'm still absolutely baffled by that much of a donation at any one point on our streams. We've had hype trains before, and I didn't know what to do then, and then we get 40 gifted subs. It definitely woke us up out of our sort of half slumber there in the 6 hours. Still quite a challenging event to cover in and amongst all of the technical issues experienced throughout yesterday. We'll see, though, what Race Control says. We'll have a verdict on that for you when we head to the third round of the championship, over whether or not we will be seeing a potential bonus round or what therein may happen. Of course, we were warned of instability for the servers coming into this event. We did actively monitor server stability on the hours leading in towards round 2, and I do personally blame myself if it's been the case where I do personally blame myself for where there's been the case that there have been people disconnecting, because we were hoping our findings would have been able to reinforce the idea that this was safe today. Evidently, we've been proven wrong. Such as the era of investigation, you don't always get what it is you find right. So 20 minutes left to go. And what has been a bizarre end to round 2. So far, it has definitely been a mixed bag, but one thing is for certain, it is still reinforcing the idea that after this round today, Van Veltzen will continue to lead, and moreover, that gap is set to open up exponentially over LeBay. Both LeBay and now, so it seems, in the last round, we saw for that of Melvin Milliston, as we see off in the background there, that was Sam Angel with Aston Martin. Both start with a round under their belts here. But bear in mind, the drop point system does come into effect after round 3. So the next round coming up, we will see the introduction then of that drop point system in Zolder, and that will nullify these two down-and-out results today for both parties. So with any hopes there that is going to bring them back into the championship later down the line. And moreover, looking over onto that calendar as well, this is as it stands at the moment, with those double sprint rounds creeping in on round 4 and round 8. Those are double points opportunities in Bathurst and Zandvoort. So that's looking rather tidy indeed. 19 minutes left to go then here in round 2. What has definitely been a bizarre turn of fate. One hopefully set to be repaired somewhere down the road. They're taking a look around the field to where some of the nearest fights may be occurring from. We take a look over to the 420. Close by to another car, but that's Ivan Sanchez in the 91. So at the moment, battling seemingly all have ceased on this track with 18 minutes to spare. One of the most recent fights was Vermaak v Nicolai, and now they're out 5.4 seconds and growing by that metric. The run down towards the line on to lap 51. Beef, Gartner and Rod, is worth speaking of here that gap is starting to drop away. Just under 4 seconds there between Rod and Beef Gartner. So as we come up onto the last 15 minutes, not long from now, this is the current scope of things, and what has definitely been a bizarre turn of events here in round 2 of the championship. With Melvin Milliston leading, Cass Van Veltzen second, Zolt Beefgartner in third, Kieran Rod on our screens at the moment in fourth, leading in the rookies division, then Tyler Vermaak fifth, Stefan Nicolai in sixth, Brooklyn Donkin in 7th, Ben Meredith in 8th, John O'Driscoll in 9th, Sam Angel in 10th, Ben Hart 11th, Michael Harris in 12th, ahead of Michael Hunt in 13th, Ivan Sanchez 14th, Alan Alexander 15th, Luke Wilson in 16th. We are seeing, though, just observing gaps here, getting closer. Hart v Harris. This is worth taking a look at here, going to catch on board with either side of this fight. On with the Lexus there. Michael Harris pursuing Ben Hart. This is for 11th on the field. In towards the corkscrew we go. Turn 7 and 8. To explain what the drop round system is there for Gioet Boris watching on in chat, as we take a look on board still with this fight of 11th, we quickly just pan over here as they go up through turn 5 over to our display here, bringing away the topic of ballast. This is what the drop point system is. It's introduced after round 3 and it nullifies the 2 worst results in the standings. I believe since this has been updated to the single worst result, though, I believe the last reg wave it was still at 2. A cumulative system that progresses with the season. The idea is to get rid of unfavorable odds that would otherwise put you out of commission, such as disconnects. That's why the system was introduced. It was brought about in season 2 because of the wave of disconnect problems that were happening in the real sort of dark ages to be on G-Portal servers. I'd say it's about half a year to nearly 3/4 of a year ago now, to where we were really in that dark ages, and it was a real struggle to get races linked together. And that's why that system came into place in the first place, was for stuff like this. And I think it's easy to forget when we've been through season 4, where we've had a near enough flawless season in terms of connectivity issues, to forget why that system exists. It wasn't just to make things competitive, it was to make things fair. And it also means that we don't have systems where we have to, worry about having to get restarts sorted, or, for example, what I've suggested there with bonus rounds, though it is an option that we're willing to explore from us here at TRTN. Of course, we don't have as anywhere near an involvement on how these events are ran. We're advisors above all things from the administrative side of things. That's all we do. We advise. With experience, having worked with plenty of leagues, we now know how plenty of them operate, so we can advise on what works and what doesn't. So you see here, looking up the inside, a little bit of a nudge there between Harris. Up on the inside of Hart, in towards the corkscrew, still up the inside, another nudge. And that tips him over through turn 8 into turn 9. Loses a bit of his balance there in the 34 in that fight for 11th. Out through the rainy curve. In towards turn 10. Complaint there from the 420. Brakes are going, says O'Driscoll in the Ferrari. 12 minutes left to go. So trying to look from the defending point of view here with Ben Hart on his way down towards turn 4. Right up behind him there, Michael Harris of Team FBR. Looking to switch him back. Gioet Boris saying, will next week be another Laguna Seca race, or are we just going to skip it? My suggestion was to add it onto the end of the calendar to make a round 11 after round 10 this season, but that's not confirmed. That was just us suggesting an idea. The next round will be Zolder. It will continue as the calendar dictates at the moment, and any changes therein would be announced in the server, and we'll also reflect those announcements at round 3 when we head to Zolder next Sunday. But until that point, that's all we know at this time, that for the majority of the people who have disconnected today, it is a case of it being a drop round. That's why the system exists in the first place, and that's what it's going to be used for. Now, you can make the argument if it was a case that this was well before halfway in the race and we saw a lot of those drivers were disconnects and not just cases where they had been in an incident and then left the race, as we have seen several times today in this race. It's worth pointing that out. I know it's very easy to skew the argument in saying that every driver that is not in this race is disconnected, as in they've been took out of it. Perhaps so, perhaps so. Just addressing one of the viewers in chat there as well. They say maybe not enough subs today for the server. I don't think the G Portal servers operate on a sort of Aztec god basis where we have to sacrifice gifted subs in order to make it work. I think the servers it's more like a hamster on a wheel. So you see here, continuing in that fight for 11th. As Harris got up and ahead, Hart's now dropping down behind Melvin Milliston. That fight for 11th starting to die off then for Ben Hart, as he drops in behind the number 1. Bit of upset through the corkscrew. I think now is a case in the next 9.5 minutes of just getting to the line here, surviving in Seca above all. In regards to other nearby fights for position, we are still seeing that gap be towed under 5 seconds between Beefgartner and Rod, but it is worth pointing out that that gap used to be at 3.9 seconds. So now for it to be up to 4.4, 4.5, he's up 0.6 over Rod. Rod still is set to win here in the rookies for his first ever rookies division win, but it is going to be a confusing time for him here, trying to keep up with the 599. Of course, the 599 has had some connection troubles, but is still on the grid. Will be interesting nonetheless to see how does that unfold. You see there, just heading out of the corkscrew was the Lexus, number 599. We see here with the 61 of Kieran Rod, much like we saw there for the 40, the 61 stepping out down through turn 8. Through turn 9 we go then at the rainy curve. And as the tyres wear on, it is going to be a major complaint, as we've already seen addressed from the 420, that the tyres are definitely going out of fashion. You see in the background there, the Nissan, Tyler Vermack 5.5 seconds away in the 85, hunting down a chance at 4th place. If he's able to make his way back to 4th, I mean, that is a serious accolade indeed. As we do see there was a temporary glitch on the heads-up display, as Beefgartner does rejoin in front. Confusing as all. I'm hoping just to get to the end of the race with no more issues technical-wise, because it is getting a little bit frustrating to track. So we have heard complaints about the brakes and the tyres for O'Driscoll. Let's have a look on board here with the 420. So far so good down through the corkscrew and through Rainy. In a turn 10, we've noticed there it's just a little bit of washout, and then when it catches over the curbs, it's not particularly happy. I mean, that's a 296 issue as well as the current issue for the tyres. This is a very snappy motor indeed. Wouldn't say it's on the same level as Lamborghini, where they've had stability issues aloof throughout their time in ACC, but it is worth pointing out Ferrari, for all of the strengths that it has, great fuel economy for GT3 in this game, great tyre conservation in GT3, it does still suffer from the same pitfalls as every other mid-engine car, and that is when you get them up over the curbs and they decided they don't want to be there, you're going to know about it very, very quickly when it kicks you off like an angry horse. You can see there, it's just a lot of washing out. It's a case where he's got the car set up in such a way, it's reactive enough when the tyres are good, but as they start to fall off, it's very front intensive. So if you can't get front grip over the car, it just completely locks up like that, where it washes out wide in most of the corners. You can see down through the corkscrew, taking things, I'd say, pretty headstrong there. I mean, it's a case where drivers do end up walking on eggshells to get the car through that section. We can see that O'Driscoll can get quite happily onto the throttle and the car can take the punishment. So it is a little bit more persuasive, but it's in fact just trying to get the car to react in the corners this far into the race. More on that in a moment's time though, because we do have recent updates there from Kieran Rod. Trouble down between turn 6 and turn 7. Getting a look here. with the 61, Kieran Rodd drops down to 5th place behind Tyler Vermack. Now, it's worth pointing out, he is still in the lead of the rookie, so 5.5 minutes to the line. All he's got to do, much as the same case we saw earlier on for the 40, is just survive here in this race. And he'll be taking home his first ever rookies category win. 5 minutes then left to go. Most recent update then was Vermack overtaking Kieran Rodd after an issue between turns 6 and 7 in the second sector of the track. Meanwhile, we see here for the 420 and the 314 in close contact. Of course, we saw approaching earlier on from behind the 420 was the 314 of Cas van Veltzen. These two having shared a grid before in different series. So they're very well aware of each other's game here, and they're not looking to fight whatsoever in the closing moments of this race. We see for the 420 there, moves over to allow the 314 on by, up at turn 1. To try and tuck back in onto his line, though. We see very liberally application of the brakes. Very liberal application of the brakes. Did make a little bit of contact there with Van Veltzen. Tiniest little tap. Meanwhile, more issues arise for what appears to be the 40 here. We see from Alan Alexander's point of view. Ben Hart had some troubles up between turn 5 and 6. Now up to turn 7. Up in front of him there. Ben Meredith in the 313. The 315 having rejoined the field after their disconnect. Still adamant to see a finish in this race. Still holds that accolade. The first ever driver to win with Porsche in this series. First ever rookie to win outright. Did so in Kyle Army last season. In a fantastic drive in the wet. 315. Perhaps on a day to forget here in Laguna Seca. Will have plenty of opportunities to wow expectations later on this season. So closing in on the last couple of laps here, 3 minutes left to go. We'll be onto the scope of our last couple of laps not too long from now as it stands. I believe maybe 2 more laps at the current run of things for that leading number 1. Meanwhile, as we see the 314 now having distanced itself over the 420. O'Driscoll still looking at a top 10 finish here, looking at how that scales up category-wise. He's on for a podium behind Meredith. And with the 61 still leading that charge. In the rookies, at least, it's a Euro Titans 1-2. In the overall category, though, they still find themselves on the podium courtesy of last round's race winner Cas van Veltzen, who will continue to extend the margins over his championship lead ahead of LeBay. Of course, this is one of the often brutal realities of sim racing, is the fact that there are plenty of ways that the drivers can be taken away from the race without actually any control on their end. Now, you can make the argument there's a lot of cause and effect in real-world racing that can do much of the same. You know, the drivers aren't the ones servicing the engine or the gearbox, so if either of those two go in the midst of a race, that's out of their control. But this is really a case here where you look into even a single race. It doesn't matter how far into it you get. It could be a 6-hour race. It could be a 12-hour race. It could be even a 90-minute race like you see today. A disconnect is such a devastating loss. And it's something that they just can't control because this doesn't extend to the client-side level. This is on the server level. More often than not as well. And when that sort of link in the chain falls apart, the rest comes down with it. And from that point on, there's just nothing they can do. See there, trouble for the 719, Sam Angel. Into the gravel out past turn 10. See there behind him is Ivan Sanchez in the number 91. Up in front, we just saw there Tyler Vermack. As we heard, their leader onto the final laps will be catching on board with Melvin Milliston not long from now, just taking a look as to where the last of the battles could even occur from at this time. A grid that has had to survive such precarious conditions today. Bushman in chat saying all the North Americans got dropped. Yeah, I think it might be a case here looking into that. So hang on, so Milliston, so yeah, you run through the order: Swedish, Dutch, Hungarian, South African, but he's connecting in from Austria, British, Romanian, but connecting from Britain, British. Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to notice a bit of a pattern here. If that's been a case where the North American servers are tanked, again, that's nothing that we can do, but obviously race control will investigate the issue once we have a clear understanding of what is going on here. The case that Alan Alexander, as far as we know, is British. He's one of several British drivers. As for Luke Wilson, he's also British. So I don't know if it's necessarily just the North American servers to have tanked. Nonetheless, down towards the line then. Race win number 17 on the cards here for Melvin Milliston. Down towards the line then. Two-time champion back onto winning form after a round to forget in Suzuka is a round to remember today here in Monterey County. He wins in Laguna Seca. Cas van Veltzen to see the checkered flag not long from now. See here for Van Veltzen sliding his way down towards turn 10. Cas van Veltzen continues to extend the margins here on his lead. Finishes on the podium once again, second place this time around for the 314 to the line. Zolt Beefgartner on his drive up in the pro category now in this championship sees the checkered flag. Third for Lexus. Across the line he goes. Third at the end of this race. Tyler Vermack fought things back from the brink there. Disconnect at the start of the session. Rejoined into the grid from the back and returns to the second row. And all things said and done, a valiant effort from the 85 Nissan. Making the top 5 then and winning in the rookies category is the number 61 of Kieran Rodd. Across the line he goes in the 61 Mustang. A win then for Euro Titans once again, but this time down in the rookies. Malwar Racing took the win in the rookies last round courtesy of David Tangway. It's Kieran Rodd that sees the win this time around. Race win though, number 17 for Milliston, continuing to toe the line on what has been a sensational tow of the current season record and moreover, for that matter, the all-time championship record of total race wins. So I'll have the full result up in a moment's time, but it is a brutal one to take a look at there with the amount of DNFs in this race. Now, of course, we saw quite a few of those to be inflicted on track. So, of course, an investigation underway after today's race. Pardon me. But a confusing one indeed. It has been frustrating dealing with the server issues throughout today. We'll wait for the full results to reel in there as we do see drivers leaving now. Of course, they are as fed up with the situation as we are. We see here another queue here for the Euro Titans team. They're back out on track for another parade here at the end of the line. Melvin Milliston wins then in Laguna Seca, race win number 17 for the number 1 two-time champion for Velocity Racing. Now back onto the charts. Ahead of Cas van Veltzen second and Zolt Beefgartner in third. Tyler Vermack fourth with Kieran Rodd in fifth. Stefan Nikolai in sixth. And with Brooklyn Donkin in seventh. Ben Meredith in eighth. John O'Driscoll ninth. And Sam Angel in 10th. Michael Harris in 11th. So as we see there, some argy-bargy with the Euro Titans cars celebrating at the end of today's race. 12th place for Hart. 13th for Hunt. 14th for Sanchez, 15th for Alexander, and 16th for Wilson. There we see, though, the huge sum of DNFs in today's race. Among them, Oliver, Romano, Boris, Betterson, Didona, Sturrock, Cheeseman, Tangway, Hesp, Skeen, Bajor, Greaves, Johnson, and LeBay. Can see that a lot of them showed up in the very early stretches of today's race there. That was quite a surprising one. And you saw for a lot of them were incidents on track as well, such as the case for Oliver, for Romano, for Boris, Betterson, Didona as well. We saw them taken down at the corkscrew For Sturrock, we saw that he had a drive-through penalty and threw in the towel there. For Zach Hesp, it was critical damage. A lot of different varying issues on that race today. Perhaps one to forget for several, but that's the nature of why the drop rounds exist, is to give them that running chance heading into round 3. Speaking of round 3, we'll be heading to Zolder on the 22nd of February, back onto the 60-minute format after what has been a very, very odd race today here in Seca. Nonetheless, that's all from us here on TRTN. Taking a look then at what the success ballast will be concerned with. 5 kilos on for Milliston, an additional 3 on for Van Veltzen, 2 on for Beefgartner, and 1 for Tyler Vermack. That's all from us here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care. Good night.